had the rise of CGNG. You've had, like you're saying, firefights happening where tens of people are dying, where police are being killed, or politicians are being killed. There's so much happening. So can you highlight what's truly happening down south right now, and how, even as fentanyl has changed the game, how much the game has also changed?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's interesting you say that people are kind of getting aware of this stuff now. Whereas, I mean, it's because I've been kind of in the trenches covering this for years, and it's like, so when I seen this stuff in the 2000s, I was like, wow, this is crazy. This is it's nuts. And over the years, it was always like, this is, you have, very heavily armed, militias, armed groups roaming around south of the border. America's going to take notice of this stuff. So it kind of takes some time for it to really it takes some years for it to really come in. But it's been brewing for the last. I mean, the roots go back a long time, but really the change it's been brewing for the last 2 decades. To give a bit, just to verify that it was 2 Americans were killed and 2 of them survived of that group in Matamoros. Yeah. It was pretty brutal, that thing there with the Americans down there. But anyway, to give a bigger picture of what's happened, I would say in a kind of bigger picture on this, bigger perspective on this over these last 2 decades, is that you used to have in Mexico, going back to the 20th century, a one-party state running Mexico. So it wasn't the Soviet Union that it wasn't, totalitarian like the Soviet Union, but it was one party and a power structure running things. And you never really had law and order, a kind of rule of law working like it does in the United States, with kind of lawyers going to court and arguing these cases. It was more a kind of system of power. Power flows, down like water, and the corruption making it go kind of flows up like gas. That's kind of how I would see this, the system of power in Mexico. But the Institutional Revolutionary Party, the PRI, were the ones running this. And you kind of had a pyramid of power where you have the top was the president. They changed the president every 6 years. So it wasn't like one big dictator. It was, change it, but it was kind of rigged. You knew the PRI were going to win. But they would choose who they're going to have. And then you go down and you have kind of mid-level power brokers and the governors. And then, and then you have the kind of what they call caciques, which is like an old word, kind of almost meaning chief. Caciques running these parts of the country. And the drug trade happened, and it was kind of part of the system. I mean, basically they would tax it. The system would tax it, through the corrupt politicians and police chiefs. They would get money from the drug traffickers, and then they would control this. Now, when you had this change in 2000 to democratic rule, everyone's going to be happy. You got democracy, and in fact, it was a former Coca-Cola executive took power. Democracy, business, it's all going to, end the history. It's all good news. When that happened, this control of the country and of organized crime broke down. And so then you got different political, now they didn't become honest, but you got different political parties and different power. And so it became a mix of power around the thing, kind of vacuums. And so you got kind of one guy who's mayor of some town for one party, but a different guy for a different party who's governor, a different guy's president. You got federal police, you got military. Who's who within this? And at the same time, the cartels are getting more and more money. So they're getting money. They had the money from marijuana for a long time, heroin. A long time, making a lot of heroin in Mexico, become a big business. Cocaine, which began with the main money going to the Colombians, but the Mexicans took over that business of cocaine. So they ended up just buying it from the Colombians and selling it in America and making the big profits. And then more recently, crystal meth, big money, getting into the synthetic drugs, crystal meth, and then finally, end of the line, fentanyl, kind of worst of all. So there's money's pumping into these organizations, and at the same time, the kind of governmental power structure is weakening. And these organizations are getting all the guns they want from the United States and starting to really buy, huge amounts. Iron River's going into arm these guys. So these guys create paramilitary organizations. So they transform from being, you look at the old days where you had like gang members, Going to California, they used to recruit gang members in California. San Diego, gang members in San Diego go down there, guys with shaved heads, tattoos, cholos, they call them, go down there with pistols and, getting these, that ended. You had paramilitary, ex-military guys, ex-Mexican military, ex-US military, ex-Guatemalan, Colombian military, basically people, or criminals where they would train them in military tactics, paramilitary tactics. And they armed them like militaries, organized like paramilitary squads. So you got radios, control systems, you got like bulletproof jackets, metal helmets, AK-47s, grenades. We can get into some of that, how they get, fragmentation grenades, RPG-7s, as well as the Barrett 50s and all this kind of stuff. And start organizing like paramilitary organizations. Now they're working with the politicians and they start to kind of changes the relationship. So instead of the politicians ordering them, they start to order the politicians around. They start to tell the local mayor, you got to work for us. And if you don't, we're going to kill you. And you got to pay us 10% of your budget. So instead of like, we're going to bribe you, it's like, you got to pay 10% of your city budget. It's got to go to us. We run this. We run this place. And then they're getting all the drug money, but then also, okay, we're going to do kidnapping. Then we'll do shakedowns. Then we're going to steal oil from, we're going to steal $1 billion worth of oil. So it's kind of real gangster capitalism, paramilitary, gangster warlords, as I call my second book, in parts of Mexico. Now, it's weird because it's not the same as say, people when they talk about it, and they talk about this in Congress and stuff now, talk about this, they're trying to make sense of what's happening. And sometimes their language is confused. They say like things like, "Oh well, a certain percentage of Mexico is controlled by cartels," but it's not the same as, say, the Islamic State controlling a territory. The Islamic State controls a territory; they got complete control, and also they care about things like educating, children. They want Islamic education. They're concerned about the culture and that kind of thing. Same when you have communist groups, the Shining Path in Peru. Take some of that. They want to change people's thinking. The cartels, first, their control is not absolute. They control certain elements. So they control the territory. They'll be happy for the government to provide electricity. They'll be happy for the government to send in school teachers. They don't care what the kids are taught in school. They want some kids. It helps for them if kids know how to read and write because they want to have them working for them. They want the government to come and collect the garbage, but they want to control and monopolize violence and various rackets of making money. So you see the structures. You go into these territories and you see kids, with radios and kids with phones controlling and the lookouts, and then you see these structures there. And that's, basically it becomes like an endemic armed conflict, endemic kind of meaning ongoing, and it's kind of caught in its own logic. These groups are fighting each other. And fighting inside each, for control of territories, and terrorizing, journalists, journalists, politicians, putting pressure on the state, sometimes fighting elements of the state. So you've got this kind of endemic armed conflict continuing. It's driving, and it's a reason for people going to the southern border and claiming political asylum. Not every single case is valid fleeing guns, but many of these cases are. People have strong cases, and that's a whole nother issue in the United States. And you've got 1.6 million people right now on a waiting list asking for asylum, political asylum in the United States, mostly from Latin America and Mexico, El Salvador, Honduras, Venezuela. So that's the kind of situation. And in the case like in Matamoros, over from Brownsville, these Americans went in. Some of them had a history with drugs, but they went in supposedly for a liposuction operation. This woman and just drove right into the middle of these shootouts.